within the Office of Field Operations, U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Thank you, George. There may be some overlap in what I'm going to be discussing, but that is to emphasize some of the key important points that we would like to convey to you, our audience, in regards to biological importation. So I have three objectives in my presentation today. First is to provide you situational awareness about U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, and the critical role the agriculture programs and trade liaison plays in supporting CBP security mission against biological threats. Second is to provide you a general overview of CBP's approaches in facilitating trade and travel while protecting the agriculture industry, public health, and the nation's economy. Third is to provide some keynotes that will assist you and allow us to facilitate processing of your biological imports through the ports of entry. So Mary had actually kind of set a stage for identifying the agencies that we enforce regulatory requirements. George, next slide, please. Just to give you a background history of CBP, its organization and mission. So after September 11, 2001, the Department of Homeland Security was formed, which integrated 22 different field offices, or different federal agencies, including CBP. All border inspection activities were consolidated under CBP, including the transfer of USDA's agriculture inspection function. So what used to be USDA's plant protection quarantine officers became CBP agriculture specialists with authority under 7 CFR, or Plant Protection Act, and 9 CFR, or the Animal Health Protection Act, to enforce the regulations pertaining to importation of biological materials, animal and animal products, as well as plant and plant products. As was mentioned earlier, we have 2,716 agriculture specialists stationed or situated in 186 ports of entry, but CBP operates in 328 ports of entry, including 16 pre-clearance stations that act as passenger ports of entry. These ports of entries are places for lawful entry of foreign travelers and goods, and include seaports, international airports, land borders with Mexico and Canada, express couriers such as FedEx, UPS, and DHL, and international mail or U.S. Postal Service facilities. Next slide, please. CBP agriculture specialists are trained to inspect, detect, and protect against the introduction of materials that pose threats to crops, livestock, and natural resources. Just to give you a perspective on a typical workload in a CBP officer's day at the ports of entry. In 2020, of the total number of travelers that CBP inspected daily, approximately 61% arrived through the southern and northern land borders, 33% by air, and 6% by water. CBP inspected close to 79,000 cargo containers daily. So that's the kind of volume that we inspect on a given typical day. The agricultural risks associated with trade and travel can be seen from the high number of quarantined significant plant pests and intercepted materials that may be vectors of animal and plant diseases. Not to mention that since 2016, we're seeing an influx of biological materials, which is growing exponentially every year or annually. So COVID-19 notwithstanding, CBP keeps innovating to facilitate essential trade and travel while safeguarding the American people and the national economy. Next slide, please. So how does CBP facilitate trade and travel while protecting the public and the nation's economy? So the previous speaker had emphasized that all inbound products are subject to inspection. In the cargo environment, custom trade laws require that importer or shipper or shippers provides manifest information in advance to CBP prior to shipment arrival at the port. The time required for advance filing depends on the mode of transportation, whether by air, sea, or truck. Advanced screening allows us to inspect the volume of cargo bound into the United States and alleviate some of the operational constraints of field inspection. So once the shipment arrives at the port, it may have already been released by CBP based on the documents presented in advance. If not, the shipment is subject to further inspection. In the travel environment, passengers are required to declare agriculture and biological materials that they are bringing to the United States and present for inspection all necessary documents for arrival or upon arrival. The passenger may be referred to the agriculture secondary, where they are given the opportunity to amend their declarations made with the primary officer, and their luggage subjected to non-intrusive inspection using X-ray and or physical inspection by the agriculture specialist. Any non-compliant agricultural and biological products are referred to the proper federal agency for disposition and action. In the passenger and land border environments and mail facilities, we also employ K9 to detect agricultural items in passenger luggage, mail packages, as well as in vehicles. Next slide, please. Another approach that CBP takes to facilitate trade and travel while protecting the public and the nation's economy is by establishing partnerships with the trade industries and the public. With trade is through trusted trade programs such as the Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism, or CTPAT. CTPAT is a public, private, and international partnership which includes most of the largest U.S. importers and designed to prevent legitimate commercial shipments from being used for illegal purposes. In the travel environment, CBP offers a trusted travel program, such as the Global Entry, for international air travelers, Sentry for travelers entering the southern land border with Mexico, and Nexus for travelers entering the northern land border with Canada. These are customer services and security programs designed to expedite screening and processing of pre-approved, low-risk U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents traveling from abroad to the United States. Forthcoming is the new CBP One mobile application, which air passengers can download on their smartphone and would allow them to schedule in advance a visit with the agriculture specialist upon arrival if they're bringing agricultural or biological materials. Next slide. CBP also partners with other government agencies and the academia to educate the public on things they need to know in importing regulated agricultural and biological materials. Today is a very good example of this partnership with Texas A&M hosting the workshop. So if you feel this workshop is of value in your respective communities, we certainly would encourage you to reach out to our biological threat exclusion coordinators and determine how similar workshop in your area can be arranged. As part of our public outreach, APTL also make presentations in national scientific meetings and provide briefings to industry partners. I also encourage you to visit our public-facing website, www.cbp.gov/biologicals, which contains information that the public needs to know in importing biologicals. Additionally, we produce information materials in the form of postcards and tear sheets that are distributed at local events and ports of entries. These materials are available to you upon request. Next slide, please. I can never overemphasize the importance of messaging that all import materials are subject to inspection. Travelers must declare to CBP officers and agriculture specialists if they are bringing agricultural or biological materials, regardless of whatever purpose they are intended to be used. The declaration could be made through the CBP Form 6059B that airlines still issue prior to landing, or via oral declaration to the primary officer, or answering yes when asked at the Global Entry or automated passenger control kiosk. Remember, the importer or shipper is responsible for complying with all applicable shipping regulations, including permits, certificates, and ensure proper labeling, packaging, and placarding of the materials. If you're ordering materials from overseas, contact the foreign suppliers and manufacturers, and determine if any merchandise contains product of animal origin, if the biological product is infectious or not, or contains ingredients derived from endangered or CITES species. As a traveler, always check the labels of the product you bought abroad for highly regulated ingredients. Gather the necessary import permits, certifying letters and statements, and/or foreign health certificates in advance. Unless these requirements could be secured and presented upon arrival, hand-carrying biologicals may not be advisable. Discuss shipping, packaging, and appropriate labeling requirements with your commercial carrier. Remember, shipping by mail of federal select agents or infectious substances capable of causing permanent disability and fatal diseases and are life-threatening is not permissible. Next slide, please. So now that you've done your homework and prepared the necessary steps for importing or shipping your biologicals, then what? The biological materials imported for research purposes, despite having no monetary value, may be deemed subject to formal entry. The law states that a formal entry may be required for any merchandise if deemed necessary for import admissibility enforcement purposes, revenue protection, or the efficient conduct of customs business. Filing an entry is done via the Automated Commercial Environment, or ACE, trade portal. Health certificates and other required documents may be uploaded via the ACE document imaging system. There is no legal requirement to hire a CBP licensed custom broker. However, many importers opt doing so for convenience. Custom brokers can conduct CBP business on behalf of the importer. They are well-versed on CBP requirements and filing entries into ACE, and will ensure compliance to all federal regulations. Check with your universities, because often universities have brokers which provide services to its constituents. For additional information on importing biologicals, you may also contact the port of intended arrival. To locate port of entry by state, you can go to the website www.cbp.gov/contact/ports. I can give that to you in chat in a short while. Next slide, please. So we understand that all of you in the academia and research institutions are preoccupied with your scientific work. And the least that we would want to do is to impede the advancement of science. We will work with you to facilitate processing of your imported agricultural and biological products. Bear in mind, however, that you have shared responsibility in protecting our agriculture industry, public health, and national economy. So we expect that you're going to do diligence in making sure that all the necessary requirements for legitimate importation of your products are satisfied and presented upon arrival at the port of entry. For your situational awareness, there are possible consequences of failure to declare and comply with import regulations. Some of them had been cited earlier by previous speakers. Such things as it could result in delays of release of shipment by CBP. Agriculture and biological products are held by CBP per request by the agency of authority, pending adjudication and meeting of regulatory compliance. Package may also be delayed during transport. It could also result in mishandling of the package during transport, which may result in damage to shipping packages or containers and inadvertent release of the contents. As time is of the essence in shipping live biological agents, delays and mishandling may also compromise the integrity and viability of the materials. Prohibited entry due to non-compliance of the material may result in quarantine actions such as destruction or re-exportation, and it would be a significant loss to your research. A very bad disruption on your research. In more serious cases, non-declaration of agricultural and biological products may result in civil penalty, and depending on the danger and risk posed by the biological material, may result in criminal penalty. Next slide, please. Before closing my presentation, let me just summarize some key takeaways. Best to know what you're importing and ensure that it complies with the federal regulatory requirements. Understand that biological materials may be subject to regulations from more than one federal agencies. All the required documents must be presented upon arrival at the port of entry. If you have any questions or require assistance, again, feel free to contact the port of intended arrival or send us an email at aptlabtc@cbp.phs.gov. Next slide, please. With that, I end my presentation and is ready to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Adam and Sean, are there any questions in the chat box for Dr. Lapitan?
From Mr. Hi, Mary, it's Adam. From Mr. Anthony Wang, when importing biological material for research purpose with no identifiable commercial value, for example, small quantities, it just moved on me, of select agent, is there reason to file entry via ACE in addition to select agent permit form 2?
I believe for...
Go ahead, sir.
We have a couple of gentlemen from the Federal Select Agents Program that's available to answer that questions. But I believe there are select agents in very small quantities, and that's provided in the Federal Select Agents Program website in the National Registry. Some of the exemptions. I would defer that for further comments by Dr. Sam Edwin or Dr. Jack Tenelsky.
So thank you for that question. Importation of any select agents, of course, as you know, require an approved Form 2 that is initiated by the recipient. So if they're able to put the information in the ACE, sometimes the people, the recipients are not able to, access and put that information, approved Form 2 in the ACE system. And we are also from the Federal Select Agent Program trying to see if there is a way that we can, put the approved Form 2s in the system. But the approved Form 2 usually has a 30-day window, so it's better for the sender to be able to, collaborate with the recipient and have that information to CBP, because it'll allow the clearance of that at the border much more efficiently. This is something, Adam, that we're still trying to perfect on our end.
Thank you, Dr. Edwin, for that. I hope, Anthony, that answers your question. And if not, we can dig into that and contact Dr. Edwin and his unit over there and get more specific with you.
Adam, this is Jack Tanowski. I think this is a two-pronged question. So question, I think number one, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is about do you need a permit? And yes, you do need a permit for the select agent or regulated amount of toxin. But question number two is, even if I'm bringing a minute amount of a select agent, you do need the permit, but do I need to put this in ACE? So I think that's the question that maybe somebody can help answer. Do we need to put things into ACE? If I'm an importer, I have Form 2 already approved. Do we need to put it in ACE? Is that correct?
That sounds correct. And I think Suzette is on the call with your Branch Chief Kelly. Is that something that you can address on that? Because that might, Suzette's got that. Submission of the Form 2 as part of the entry package supports expedited clearance of the item at the port of entry by CBP. So that sounds like a great yes to me.
Yep.
So go ahead and get that document in there in the ACE system. it's really going to help CBP move it through. And if you've got all your documentation through, then CBP can expedite that clearance, and you're up above bar with all the agencies involved. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes on that one.
Okay, are there any other questions in the chat box?
Okay,
All right.
Anthony is good with the answer to that, and it looks like there's nothing else coming in, Mary, so I think we can move on. So thank you, Mary. Thank you, Dr. Lapitan. Thank you, Dr. Edwin and Tanuski. I appreciate all the comments there and the answers to those questions.
Okay, our next speakers are due to start at 11.